Welcome to Nested, an original podcast from the White Wren, featuring intersected stories about love, life at home, and everything in between. Our mission is to inspire and encourage you in prioritizing tangible interactions that take place within the four walls of your family home. Each episode, we talk to interesting people who have a heart for making time for the things that matter most in life. Let's dive into this episode.
We'll find our way back home. We'll find our way back home. No, we'll never have to walk alone. We'll find our way back.
For this episode, Brent Deitrich, publisher at the White Wren, hosts a roundtable conversation on the state of the wedding industry as it moves into 2026. Joining him is Clara Gilleland of Be Inspired PR, along with White Wren Collaborative members Jasmine Ortiz of Jasmine Marie Photography and Kimberly Sisti of Sisti Co. Together, they explore what's shifting across the industry, what's no longer sustainable, what creatives are rethinking, and what the next chapter may require from those building long-term, values-driven businesses.
We'll just kind of jump right in, and if I could go around and get you all to give a little intro. Thank you guys for joining me today to talk about, kind of the state of the wedding industry, where we're at now, what we're looking for in 2026, some things that you all are seeing on your end in your professional capacities. And I'm excited to have you join us on Nested today and just hear your perspectives on like what is up and coming. Let's go ahead and kind of go around, and if you all would give a little intro about yourselves and what you do, and then we'll jump right in. Clara, you want to lead us off, and then Jasmine, and then Kimberly?
Yeah, I'm Clara. I am the senior PR manager at Be Inspired PR. We're a PR marketing social media firm specifically for the wedding industry. So if you work in the wedding industry, you are a fit to be a client of ours. And I'm excited to be here.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm the owner of Jasmine Marie Photography. I am a California and destination wedding photographer. I've been a professional photographer for 14 years, and I just wrapped up my 6th year in the wedding industry. And again, very happy and excited to be here.
I'm Kimberly. I own Sisti Co, which is a wedding planning service, and then also we do florals and design. We are based in San Diego, California, but we travel all around. And I've been in the industry for almost 12 years, and we just wrapped up our last event a couple weeks ago. So we're flying high right now.
Nice. And Kimberly and Jasmine are both members of the White Wren Collaborative, which is our community that we collaborate and market with here with the magazine as well. And Clara and I email almost every day, I think, or every couple of days. Somebody from her team is sending stuff over for us. So we all stay in good touch with each other. So I know that we've all kind of felt a change in the industry. Of course, after COVID, a lot of things shifted and changed in the way people were doing and having weddings. And it sort of feels now kind of like with a combination of the intensity of that dying off and then also a change in Gen Z entering the market, that there's been another bit of a transition happening. And so I would just like to kind of hear, like in a brief 30 seconds or so from each of you, like why you feel this moment feels or what about this moment feels transitional to you? What feels different to you than it did 2 years ago? We can kind of keep that same pattern, I guess, of going around, just so we know which one to go in.
I'll kick off. I think if I had to kind of describe using like one word, my little like pitch would be, it feels very communal. I would argue that like even 5 or 6 years ago, not necessarily in a bad way, but I feel like every vendor in the industry was very much doing their own thing, carving out their own space. I have seen a shift where there is a lot of unity, whether that's in language that vendors are using about their services, trends, the way that we're communicating with clients, the way that couples are onboarded. It just feels like there's a sense of community and unity and kind of oneness in how vendors are moving forward. And I think we're really going to see a lot more of that on the style trend side too, just kind of pushing couples towards like, this is sort of like a standard across the industry, which I don't feel like has really been as present in years past.
Okay, what about you, Jasmine? What do you think?
I think the first thing that's coming to my head is the fact that we have seen in the workforce and just in life in general that Gen Z is a very different generation than previous generations, especially in the sense that they are not afraid to ask questions and they're not afraid to advocate for themselves in like any situation. And so I think what we're seeing now that this generation is at the age to be getting married is we're seeing a lot of questioning of like, oh, well, why do we do it like this? Or like, why can't we do it like this? Or just a lot of new, fresh kind of ideas or questioning of things that perhaps like it may have just been, becoming a little stale, and they're having us question and reevaluate like, yeah, why do I do it like this, or why is the wedding industry like this, or why have we been doing it like this for so long, like why can't we change it and switch it up? And so I think it's been quite eye-opening having to deal with this new generation of people who are coming to me with questions or with ideas or different things that I haven't had the opportunity to deal with before and actually ponder and think about. And so that's something that I'm seeing, is that there's a lot of new ideas and new ways to be getting married, new ways to photograph weddings and everything. And that's what I'm seeing from Gen Z.
Tackle this from like the planner aspect and then the floral industry aspect, because we do both pretty much for each of our clients. So I think on the planning front, it's people are asking a lot more questions, which is fine, and because we don't mind answering them at all. It's just they're also different kinds of questions. I've started noticing, just not necessarily that what we were doing was wrong or bad or even old by by some standards, but just differences in questions. Like, I've had numerous people reach out and ask questions about, well, what do you do with my information after, and it's not a usual thing that we get asked about. Like, what about offboarding? Like, that's not usually something we talk about in the onboarding stage. So just absolutely thoughtful questions, which is refreshing. And it just reminds me that I need to step it up and make sure that I am addressing those questions to others that maybe, were too worried to ask. So I'm seeing a shift towards that. And then on the floral industry front, I would argue it's absolute, just no one, it's kind of chaos. Like, no one knows. Like, when clients come to us, I don't know who has told them that they need to know about flowers or anything. I don't know where they're getting this. Like, and I feel bad because they come to me and they're like, I'm so sorry. Like, I don't have any information. And I tell them, you shouldn't. It would be honestly very strange if you did. So it's very different coming from people that don't know, like, I'm so sorry. And then I have, clients on the planning aspect that are just like, well, let's talk about this, and this. And it's very interesting that there's definitely a difference in the clients that are coming to us now. Very different.
Yeah, I think, and just as a little background, like on myself as well, because I'm the publisher at the White Wren, but I also am in the trenches with everybody else in the wedding industry on a daily basis, because we have our own photography and videography company, and I've been doing that for going on 18 years as well now. Definitely seeing that kind of shift in how people are processing and handling things. Definitely seeing a trend of like people that they don't necessarily want to feel like the models on the stage for their day anymore. They want to just be having a good time with their guests. And I think some of this shift that we're seeing, like on an editorial perspective, towards things that feel a little bit more documentary in nature, is contributing to their mentality, or is as a result of their mentality from that, because they're a little exhausted and a little tired of everything looking hyper perfect, and so they've gone to embodying this, and like some photographers will throw shade at it, of like things that feel a little bit less than picture perfect. But I think it's like a mental thing for them. Like they're exhausted with the perfection and the hyper perfection of social media, and having to feel like they're on a stage performing, and so they just want everything to feel very raw. And we'll get a little bit more into like the kind of the booking mentality, and like I think the perceived, like how these clients perceive luxury versus not now too, which is another interesting topic. But I think just That's been one of the biggest changes that I've seen in the last 2 years, is just how they're interacting with what they want their end product to be like and what they want their experience during their wedding day to be. Going around again then, and I know, Clara, y'all are not really dealing as much with the booking aspect of it because you're on kind of on the other side of it post-wedding. But for Jasmine and Kimberly, like, how do you feel when people are approaching you with their budgets and their booking procedures? Do you feel like there's been a change in that, or in the way that you need to communicate to couples this year and going into 2026 as well?
I would say yes, for sure. I'm seeing, from the photography standpoint, I'm seeing couples coming in already with a vision of mind of what they want. And it's a very concrete kind of a vision. And it's them checking, are you available? And are you able to deliver what we're looking for? And so my calls with my clients, or with my inquiries, has definitely changed a lot from before. And I'm still right now, even like kind of in the process of finding the sweet spot of being able to like make sure that these clients are heard and that I'm fully taking in what they're saying, but then also explaining about myself and how I work, and how I can create something that works to mesh both like my vision and their vision, if that makes sense. Because there's been a lot of inquiries where it's like, we want, going back to like editorial thing. They're like, we want editorial for some photos, but then we also want like documentary. And then like, we really like the dark and moody, and then, but sometimes light and airy. Like it's like having a style is not really, how do I put it like this? Like you can't, they want flexibility.
Yeah.
They don't want just a straight up editorial, but they also don't want just a straight up documentary. They want a little bit of everything, and we're seeing that a lot with a lot of the luxury photographers as well. We're seeing many different formats and cameras and film and this kind of film, and all these different things that they're delivering, and they're putting all together in the wedding, in the final album to send to the clients. And it's just like an amalgamation of the entire day. It's beautiful, and it's just different than than what we've been, like even before the pandemic. It was like, find your style and you hone in on it and you do your best with that, and that becomes like your niche basically. And now I feel like Gen Z is asking for us to be, coming out of our niche and doing more, and delivering more and all that. So I hope that all made sense.
Yeah, it's super challenging. It is like kind of a little bit of everything, and it's different. I guess it's the term that's been going around is the loose editorial, something where it's like very, and you might have seen a change on this as well, Clara, perhaps on like the way weddings have come through. I know we've seen it at the White Wren for sure, because you see these things creep in, and all of a sudden everybody starts doing something a certain way. And I think the challenge for like any artist or vendor is to like keep what makes you you. Obviously, like we need to appeal to the market, we need work, but you need to keep honest and true to yourself while still keeping with what people want to book. So that has been the challenging part of it. Kimberly, what about you on the booking side, and all? Have you seen a change in anything with that?
It's been, for at least for me, for this year, it's been so weird. And to be fair, a lot of things have been going on in the world that I feel really weren't going on 5 years ago, 7, 8. I mean, we had things, but for some reason, right now, it all feels so much more dire and so much more at the forefront of everybody's mind, that it's hard to get people to not think about it, because it's just right there. So I would say that one of the big things that I've noticed, regardless of what we're booking for, is a hesitation to book and an increased booking process timeline. And I would argue it's dramatically different. Some people are naturally gonna just decide yes or no sooner rather than later, but there are clients that they'll reach out and then they'll come back to me 4 months later. And I'll be like, oh, I thought you just ghosted me. And then they come back because they've had XYZ happen or things have changed. And then they come back. So I've noticed an increased timeline on that respect. And also, I'm noticing more people, or at least for me, flexibility with booking dates because they're now afraid to book a certain date. Like they're coming to me early enough in the process where they haven't booked the venue yet, which is great, which is what as planners we want. However, it's this much more flexibility in, well, are you available?
Mm.
And like being able to switch your availability if need be, which is always a tricky topic for vendors because yeah, we might have, a second shooter or, a lead planner that we can go to, but it's different now. Like it just feels different because we want to make sure that what we're providing, our services are cohesive through no matter who is leading the day. Like we're still there, but it feels different, if that makes sense. And floral wise, I would have to say that there's just a lot more hesitation because people don't know what they want, and that's fine. So they a lot of times I'm seeing clients come to me and they're like, well, we need to have every single little thing like marked out because they need to see what the pricing is now versus later. And that's a huge thing because a lot of florists will have written in their contract that the pricing can change because now that we have tariffs on these poor little beautiful puffs of nature, um, things can change. And so it really stresses them out. Like they don't want to have to find out that they're spending an extra couple grand, like 2 months ahead. And I don't blame them. I wouldn't want that.
Mhm.
So I've incorporated some different policies into my business where we don't change pricing, but that's like a whole different conversation. But yeah, like there's definitely more hesitation and just not knowing what to expect in that regard.
Yeah. I think on my side, I've seen that they either move really quickly or really slowly. It is definitely that thing, and it's like I've tried to like put more information up front for clients now, like break down some of the barriers to getting to pricing information because they really want to know that up front, and they don't want to be on a ton of calls. They don't want to go back and forth a whole lot, and so getting that information right up front and showing them like why my service, um, is a wow luxury, is a, just a great service for them, dollar value, like what they're getting for the experience they're getting. When they see that and realize that up front, they book really quickly. But then there's some that do drag on a little bit. But I do think that in this generation, that for sure having more information up front and having an ease of booking is like really important to the current market. They don't want to go through a whole lot of back and forth communications or phone calls or different things. They just want the information and then make a decision. So let's talk a little bit too about just the kind of shift towards weddings that have an experience in them. I think that that's one thing that we've definitely seen as we see visuals come through in the White Wren and just in our own experiences throughout the industry. Clara, you probably see this in a lot of stuff that comes through for y'all for submissions and stuff too, but just this kind of relationship with providing like fun things for your guests during the wedding, making it more about the experience for the guests while you're there, less about the performance on the couple, more about just having a meaningful wedding day, and kind of what you guys have seen like in practice for that, like with your clients or with visuals that you've seen come through, like how are couples kind of changing and reshaping their wedding days to reflect that value? Sorry.
Yeah, I would say guest experience is king right now. I think that whether you have an ultra luxury budget or you're a low budget couple, they're still putting the higher percentage of budgets towards experiential moments. One thing that I always ask every client who gives us a gallery to submit is what makes this wedding unique. And I would argue 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that was all design focused. So it'd be like, this wedding is ultra colorful, or we used this specific type of flower, or whatever the case may be. These days, it is almost entirely like a specific entertainment they used, cocktails that were provided, that kind of thing. So I think that people are really This generation seems very focused on experience. And I will also say fashion is super important these days. Most of my clients, the number two detail they're giving me, besides the experiential ceremonies and receptions, is what the fashion details were for the day. That seems to be really priority for this generation as they're kind of figuring out where they're spending their dollars.
Yeah. Jasmine, what are you seeing?
I'm seeing, I think this generation understands how much effort goes into attending a wedding, whether it was growing up or attending their other friends' weddings and stuff like that. And so I am seeing a lot of effort focused towards the experiences. And I think why it is because it's the couple that's saying, if we're making our guests come all the way over here, or if we're having this destination wedding, or if they have to take a day off from work, like we want to make sure that they feel like it was worth it. I feel like it's that kind of a mentality. That is why there's a lot of focus on the experience versus how pretty the wedding is looking. Going back to photography styles, and I think that's why kind of this, like you said, the loose editorial or this documentary style is kind of in right now, basically because it's a very loose kind of a day. I personally I'm a big like logistics person. I like to know like all the details ahead of time to be like, okay, is anything special happening during this time? Like, where should I be during this time? Just so that I make sure that I'm documenting everything. But I think for this generation, it's just we're gonna be here, we're gonna have the ceremony, we want to take these photos, but then we also want to just enjoy, the rest of the night. And it's just a very loose kind of a timeline, even for like rehearsal dinners or for any kind of welcome parties, any other celebrations that's happening. It's just like, yeah, we're just going to be hanging out with friends and we just want some photos with our friends and the fashion as well. Going back to that as well, fashion is huge as well. I think this generation is really in a positive way taking every opportunity that they can get to dress up. And it's really fun from a photo standpoint to get to photograph so many different outfit changes, just outfit moments in general, and also for the guests as well. Guests I'm seeing are putting in a lot more effort into their dress as well. So that's just helping make the wedding look even more unique and more beautiful, especially when it fits the theme, when there's like a color scheme or something like that. That's really
Yeah, for sure. Kimberly, what are you seeing on your side?
All sorts of stuff. Just probably maybe not the answer to give. I don't know everything. It's hard to say. Like, I would say, like, earlier in my career, it was different. I mean, like 6 7 years ago, because you also like, as your clients change, so do you, and so does your business, and what you are trying to do. Like, your goals 7 years ago are very different than what your goals are now. And so I feel like we also do attract different people throughout the years that we're providing our services. So I would say that the biggest change is that it's almost, it's like the, I don't know why this term is on my brain, but it's like conscious uncoupling. I don't know why. I think I've been watching too much, I don't know, other stuff. But like, I don't know. But like, people are asking for, or they're expecting that it's going to be very, very scheduled, their day, but they don't want to feel like it's scheduled. And so on my end, like, that has always been like, that's how we approach our weddings. Like, you don't need to know the timeline. Yeah, you can read the timeline, but if you're there, like, looking at your watch, like, oh, we're 5 minutes, like, then you're not my kind of client, like, first of all. But second of all, like, it's gonna happen. It's all good. Like, relax. So like, I'm kind of wondering, like, where did that come in, that it is so strict and inflexible, that that clients nowadays, that this generation is asking for the opposite. Because at least on our end, it has always been a very like, you shouldn't really see us. Like, you'll see us, but it's not like we're bothering you. Like, you are there to enjoy your moment.
Mhm.
For us, it's more of like, we have to reassure this generation that it's gonna be okay. Like, we're not gonna be bothering you or asking you for ridiculous things, like, okay, well, like, now pose like this, or now I need you to like hold your glass like this for like this Instagram moment. Like, a lot of us vendors aren't, that really wasn't our thing anyway. So I'm noticing a lot more of having to, don't worry, it's all going to happen. It's all going to be great, but just trust us. But I feel that they have the need to say something because they're just worried that it will be too structured is
Yeah.
what I'm seeing. As far as the florals, I think that this has always been the case with florals, is that people like to give sometimes like, oh, I like these flowers in the initial like discussion on color palette or style and things like that. And the funny thing is that it's nice to know what you like, but as a florist, it it doesn't matter. Like we have to educate the client that the style of what you want is going to be what you are envisioning, but using an exact flower is damn near impossible.
Mhm.
I mean, like right now we're seeing calla lily everywhere, or lilies in general, which are usually not that commonly used in weddings because they have a scent profile that can be considered obnoxious. So, like, there's just like, we can use those flowers, like, great that you like them, but why don't we do something like, why don't we get to the root of you? Like, let's bring this down a bit. So I'm noticing that too on the floral end of like, work's gonna be beautiful. We don't have to use what everyone else is using on Pinterest. Like, I promise you. Like, and the other thing too is that, like, at least in the floral industry, what becomes popular, that's what the farmers then produce more of the next year, and that is what increases the cost. So like, it's not great to be doing what everybody else is doing because it will result in much higher costs for that product the following years for brides that think that they're doing something different and unusual and, ta-da. It doesn't really work that way. Like, it's very much like it's a business for, like it's a farm. So we need to know what to plant. So I would say that those are some of the differences.
Yeah, I think that the reassuring thing is definitely something. I always joke that, like, in the wedding industry, you have to be good at your actual job, and then you have to be good at being a therapist and a hype person to your people too, because you may be encountering a variety of emotions on that day, and bringing calm reassurance to people that everything's going to be fine and their day's going to be awesome. And it's one of those things I've seen too, like, as people become more seasoned in the industry, they get better at being that person.
Yeah.
In the beginning, they will get flustered themselves sometimes, and that doesn't lend itself well to an anxious bride. And so, with years of experience, you kind of develop this chillness where you're just like, it's all okay. You're going to be fine. You're going to have a great day. And, but, I think that that is kind of another thing too, in like defining, and it goes with this thing of like experience weddings, even like a redefining of what luxury means, because I think that to a lot of clients now, luxury isn't just the price tag value that they're putting on their weddings, it's the way that they are feeling through the day. Do they feel like they're being treated like luxury? Is the service great? Are the things that they're experiencing that day great? And so it's much less on just like all the tactile things of the day, and a lot more on just the general feelings of the day, that I think are redefining what luxury means to today's clients as well too. But I want to pivot real quick, and Kimberly, I know you have to go soon, so I'm gonna, if you want to talk to this first too, because I just want to talk a little bit on like some of the design and aesthetic choices that we see come through, and some things that we might be looking for in 2026. And I get what you're saying. I hear what you're saying about something trends and everybody wants to do it, because that's definitely a thing. But like, there's probably some things that you've seen. I know even with florals, like there's been a lot of things that have gone around on Instagram about like floral purses and different things like that. Like, is there any things like that that you're like, this is not something that was happening a couple years ago, but definitely something that we're seeing trending right now in like design or aesthetic, style board type things?
Yeah, I would say especially in the floor, well, I guess in general in planning, or well, and more so in design and florals, there's been a higher interest in more structural composition to florals, which is fabulous, and it's great because floral is an art, which is awesome. So instead of just doing like what we would lovingly call like a roundy moundy, like, or a tight ball of, well, I have many words for that. I mean, like, now we're seeing things that are asymmetrical, which is fabulous. So we're seeing a lot more variety on that respect. And with that in mind, we are seeing different uses of flowers, more so the way that they should be used. So, there's many design principles that we as florists would use. So whether it is a long flower that is, that's really showcasing its length versus a focal flower versus a filler, like we're seeing differences in like how we would traditionally use them, which is awesome. So like, for example, you could take a calla lily and you could really emphasize the length of it and the height and make it more asymmetrical, or you could make it into a focal flower where you're making it into something dense or creating little pockets of density interspersed. So we're seeing more of that. It's a great question to ask, especially now that we have the Pantone color of the year, which is like, it has been polarizing to see how many people are pissed. It's funny, like it's a color. It's a color. Do what you want. Don't listen to it. Listen to it. But it's funny. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm so excited. It's white. No, it's not white. It's off white. It's cream. Do whatever the hell you want. I don't know. So it's an interesting, like, you could argue that it's just going to be more of the same because everyone says, I love white, it's classic. But it's really what you do with it that makes it you. And that's the whole point of all of this. I think that a lot of clients just get nervous because they're not in the design realm, so they don't know that they can still make it their own. Just let the pros do it, you know. But I would say that that's one of the biggest things is just, yeah, I would say on the floral and design aspect is just letting us do the job, but there is definitely a change into asymmetrical. Gosh, what else? I would also say pattern. Right now, I would say for many years neutrals were, it's safe. It will always be timeless, chic, but so can everything else if you do it right. And I think that's the biggest thing is we're seeing people question, well, what can we do? Which is a really nice difference than what it used to be, which was just, I know that you guys remember when it was all about mauve. Like it was mauve, everything. Beautiful color, lovely, fabulous. But holy cow, can we, like, come on, come on. Like, let's spice it up a bit, So, all right,
Yeah.
I'm done blabbering. I'm good. Okay.
Do you think, I wonder if people, like, because there's just so much more variety to see, like, online, and it's like people aren't just isolated to, like, a wedding magazine that they're getting all their inspiration from. And I even feel like, I don't know, maybe this is, I don't know from the design standpoint, but I feel like even people aren't as locked into, like, just Pinterest replication as much now. Like, they don't just look at that. They kind of do get a broader scope of like what's possible or what they're seeing, and then they kind of come up with some things that are a little bit different, which I really like. I guess it kind of goes back to the individuality. I think that this generation of brides is very much about individualism, and them doing things that just reflect their personality too. Jasmine, what do you see with your couples?
Yeah, that was something that I was going to touch on is the fact that I'm seeing a lot of inspiration not coming from other weddings. I'm seeing it coming from pop culture or from the fashion industry or the art industry. And so we're seeing a completely different, a lot of fresh new design ideas coming in. And I love asking my clients for like, photos that are inspiring them, whatever that means to them. And I'm seeing a lot of like non-wedding photo shoots being sent to me or being used as inspiration. A lot of design elements just from like architecture and patterns and destinations, like just being inspired by an entire city kind of a thing. And so it's been really refreshing to see, to be honest, is that people are looking outside of the wedding industry, and at the same time, by doing that, it's making sure their wedding is true to them, if that makes sense. And so it's not just like a wedding, it's the it's this couple and this is, everything that they love in the outside world and everything, and they're incorporating it into their wedding so that the design just feels like them. The day feels like them. The people that are there and everything, it just feels like them and not just like any other wedding. And so that's been really nice to see, is that couples are wanting to go kind of outside of the box with what they're wanting to produce for their engagement session or on the wedding day or something like that. And seeing inspiration from fashion, architecture, art, and all those different aspects.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Clara, you see all of it because you're kind of on the side that I am too, where you just see all the things that come through. So what do you see as far as like design, aesthetic, color trends, changes
Yeah.
in design and
One
stuff?
thing that I think has become really popular this year and I think is just going to continue to grow is the high-low aesthetic. A lot of couples are wanting lots of luxury touches in the guest experience and in the design, but they're also doing that by serving like silver platters of like chicken nuggets and french fries, or they're wearing like a really cool designer gown with like Converse sneakers at the end of the night, things like that. Lots of like custom trucker hats are the favors now versus like a really nice, you know, all the I used to call it like the era of the jar. 10 years ago, if it was jarred, it was a favor, right? Like a jam, a candle, something
Yeah.
in a jar was a good favor. These days there's a lot of the like high low. And I do think, to Jasmine's point, that goes with the inspiration that couples are pulling from. They're looking at movies, songs, art, architecture, nature, um, a lot of sources outside of weddings to come up with their overall wedding package. And then, to Kimberly's point, that makes it a much more unique and individualized experience. And I think that that's just, I think couples are embracing like other things they're interested in besides wedding trends. So it might be their wedding day, but they're like, I also still want to serve my favorite food or play my favorite music or whatever the case may be, which I think there was hints of this in years past, but it feels like that's very much the norm now, is couples looking outside of what they think of as wedding decor or wedding food or wedding fashion, and now they're just kind of like, I just like these colors, let's go for it, or I like this food, let's serve that. And so I think that that's going to stay trending over the years. I think that, and multi-day wedding weekends. I think, Jasmine, you were the one that said earlier, like, couples are saying, if you're going to come all the way to this destination, let's make it worthwhile. I think couples are also saying, if I'm going to spend money and have all my favorite friends and family together, I want to spend a lot of time with them. So we're seeing like an all white welcome party, and then a very colorful wedding day, and then maybe something a little more relaxed for a brunch or a pool party. So people are kind of exploring different styles and things they like over multiple days for the wedding weekend versus one cohesive style throughout the entire kind of schedule of events.
Yeah, I think that's all very true. That's stuff that I've seen in the industry with my couples too. Late night burgers, just things like that. Like you said, something that's very casual but dressed up a little bit more. Um, we've seen, I mean, we had one that we actually featured in the last magazine where they had pizza, but they had custom pizza boxes that had like the couple's name on it and stuff like that. Like it fancied it up, and it was really cool. But kind of that. There's that, and then there's also the trend towards I'm trying to remember the exact. I think they call it small luxuries, where it's like you're not spending a whole lot of money on like big major things, but you'll spend, and this is just kind of a generational like buying habit. You'll overspend on something that's small, like a perfume or something that's small that's like really overpriced for what it is, but you're spending a couple $100 versus like I'm gonna go buy this $100,000 car. It's like a small splurge, and I think that has carried into what people do at their weddings too, where they'll do like even that of like getting a custom trucker hat for your guests. Like that's obviously a more expensive favor, most likely, than your jar of jelly or your bag of nuts or whatever people used to do back in the day. Like that is a small splurge for your couple or for your wedding guests, but a little bit more meaningful and a little bit, something that they will go back from with the day and be like, well, I got this really cool thing. So that's also a little bit of a shift, I think, in how couples are budgeting and spending money too. I have seen a lot of couples even, and I was talking about this with some vendors the other day, back when I started, we used to have so many late night weddings. Like it would always go till like 11, sometimes midnight, and people would get really, really drunk, unfortunately, because there'd be a lot of hard liquor flowing, and like people would come out of it just smashed. And I feel like that even has trended differently now, in that they're ending a little bit earlier. Some people are trimming their alcohol bars out in favor of having like just a nicer meal overall for their guests, or like having a different experience for the guests that come in, like a little bit, less on the alcohol side, which is also just interesting to have seen. At least that's what I'm seeing here. I don't know if that trends all over the country, but I've definitely seen that with some of our clients here. I want to pivot into kind of because we touched on it a little bit on like the design aspect and styled shoots and things like that. And I want to just talk a little bit about like the way visual storytelling and like editorial inspiration has also changed, because I do feel like this has been another shift. And I think we just lost Kimberly, so we had to duck out. She was there for a moment, but she's gone now. And I think that is also something that we see like on the editorial table coming through, is like less and less on just, oh, she's back. But I'm going to mute you just because there's a little bit of a buzz, but if you want to join in, feel free to unmute. Okay. Is like there is less, I think there's still a place for like editorial inspiration, like where you just go out and you create something that doesn't have guests, it's not a wedding day. But I feel like the abundance of it has decreased. Like everybody used to just hammer on styled shoots. It was like people would do like more styled shoots in a year than they did actual jobs. And I think that this generation also started to see through that too, where they're like, well, this is great and this is pretty, but this is not a real day. These are not real people. These are models. This is not what I'm going to look like. And also there's no guests in this picture. And so the amount of those kind of things started to decrease. Like what we started to see come through, it was less and less of like just the styled inspiration and more inspiration that came from actual real world events. So I would like to talk about that, just kind of that shift in that what couples are gravitating towards, and what y'all are seeing on your side too.
Yeah, I can touch on this a little bit. I think that in years past, from a vendor perspective, the goal of a styled shoot was typically publication, and that was kind of the driving force behind it. I think now, in shifts we've seen in outlets who are maybe not taking styled content or are just prioritizing real weddings and real content, now I think that the driving force behind most of the style shoots I'm seeing is for booking clientele. So it's less about, I'm going to do a style shoot with the specific outlet in mind that I'm going to be pitching to for publication. And it's more about, I'm trying to book clients who want to do this type of design or who are interested in a destination in this location. And so it's mostly for social media, marketing in their newsletters, in different sorts of kind of internal campaigns versus pitching to outlets. And so it seems like vendors are more so less focused on where can we get this featured and more on, I have a client that I am not booking that I want to book, and I'm going to put together something that is specifically targeting those couples. And so I think that's really interesting. I'm seeing a lot similarity in styled shoots because of that, because vendors are getting really granular in who they're targeting in their clientele. And so they're creating very specific designs or very specific locations, models, that kind of thing, because they're targeting specific couples and not trying to appeal to the masses of publications and saying, what will most outlets be interested in? They're more like, what are these types of clients and couples interested in?
Yeah, I think from a photographer standpoint, style shoots, pre-pandemic. I like to view the wedding industry as like pre-pandemic and then like post-pandemic, because there's been a huge change, to be honest. But pre-pandemic, everyone was saying to do the style shoots to build up your portfolio when you're starting, to just build it up as much as possible, use these photos to show clients that you know how to photograph a wedding, even though there's no guests in it. And even though, a lot of clients could see past it, to be honest. And now, going along with what Clara said, it's using these photos to show your clients what you can do. and we're going outside of the box, and we're also investing a lot more money into these. They are not as cheap and quick and cookie cutter as they were before, but that's kind of for the best, I feel like, because there was, I feel like, a point in time where everyone was doing styled shoots and they were all looking the same like each other. And I think every photographer comes to a point where they ask themselves, what am I really trying to accomplish with all these shoots that I'm paying this money for, or all these shoots that I'm investing money in? And so I think now I'm seeing photographers are investing in like personal shoots, are doing their own kind of styled shoots with some vendors that they've always wanted to work with, or vendors that they really trust and click well with, and they're producing something that's different or something that they would like to photograph more of in the next wedding year, or something that, you know, they're presenting something new to their clients and to their clientele. Publication would also be great. That's great as well. But on social media, if you can get a collaborative post with like 6, 7, 8 different vendors that you all worked well on this shoot together and you all are wanting to push it out, that's going to get a huge reach, a much bigger reach than some publications nowadays. And so I think the shift of how editorials and style shoots are being produced, the reason why they are being produced, and what's the outcome for them has really changed a lot. And I think for the better, to be honest.
Yeah. And I think there's still value in being published even now as people lean more into ChatGPT to tell them what to do and things like that. Like chat is going to be pulling a lot of information from the internet on different sources. And so I think even now it may be even more important to have your business represented in like multiple platforms and multiple websites and seen on the internet as many places as possible outside of just social media. And so I don't think that there's any lack of need for it for being published or featured, but like you said, it is honed in a little bit more, and you do start to realize, like, I was on that side where I was just a photographer and just a videographer and like producing something. This is so cool. This looks so great. And when you come to the other side of it, where Clara and I are at now, and we're seeing all of it, we're like, wow, there's like 60 of these this week that just came through that all look exactly the same. Like this person is super hyped about theirs, but they don't know that like so many other people through the country just made the exact same thing. And so it is a little bit tougher to stand out. You know, we've always been a little bit more focused on like the story side of the couple at the White Wren too, and not just the design and the aesthetic. But I think that honestly, I think that the ones that just really like tell a good story and have like some cool guest experiences and stuff stands out and is more memorable even than just having like over the top, you know, design things or design trends too.
And I would like to add one more thing too about the publications, that I think with vendors, there's been a switch on the reason why they want to get published. I still love the idea of getting published and everything, but being published now versus how it was in like even the 2010s or the early 2000s, like back then you were able to, you know, get a bunch of inquiries from, you know, the direct publication, and now it's different, but also there is still a huge audience of future couples getting married that are seeing these publications and are still using them for inspiration and everything. And so being able to inspire these couples and then eventually, hopefully, it leading back to your work is, I think, the new way of how publications can really help with vendors. And everyone is, you know, the publications, a lot of publications have long months to wait for it to actually come into fruition or anything, but it's worth it in the end, and it's a different kind of outcome. And at the same time, going back to, you know, with the personal shoots and making something that's unique and unique to yourself and your business goals along with the other vendors, I think publishing to the right publications or submitting to the right publications will also benefit you as well.
Yeah, I agree with that too. That's something we're really educating our clients on too, is being open to the outlets that you're publishing to. I mean, this is still very much prevalent, but especially, you know, 10 years ago, a lot of vendors, you know, you have 2 or 3 goal outlets in mind and you're targeting those outlets and those outlets only. There, especially post-COVID, has been such a shift in what outlets are taking content, what outlets are taking styled content versus real weddings versus other types of events like bridal showers or engagement parties. And so that's something we're really pushing, kind of what you guys were saying too about AI. Like a lot of the value that comes from getting published is beyond just booking a client. I always tell my clients, probably from your past experience in your publications, you're not getting a ton of bookings from couples saying, I saw your wedding featured on XYZ outlet, and that's why I want to book you as my planner. That rarely is happening. However, you're probably getting vendors who are reaching out to you saying, I saw your work here. I'd love to collaborate with you on a style shoot or on an upcoming wedding. Please keep me in mind for referrals. You're getting general inquiries and traffic to your website. You're getting SEO credibility and what I would call just like other opportunities. Perhaps you're getting invited to join networking groups, to speak on a podcast, to go to a summit or kind of a small group fam. I think that there's kind of other value besides just like booking a client, and all of those other things that you get out of publication is what eventually comes back around to then direct dollars in your account, couples booking you. It's almost like you've kind of got to use the publication to get those middle things. And then those middle things are what more directly lead to sales versus publication to sales.
I think I had a note about that in what I sent to y'all about like submissions as being a long-term brand building thing, not an instant payoff, because it is true what Jasmine said. Like it used to be that way. Like you would get a feature on something big and you'd have 8 inquiries that afternoon. Like it was an immediate thing, and it's much more of a slow burn now of like, this is a long-term marketing strategy of building my brand up to where it needs to be. Kimberly, I know you're still on here. Do you have anything that you want to jump in and talk about as far as what we've been chatting about?
Yeah, editorials are, gosh, I gotta say, like, coming from the florist perspective, we tend to have the most to lose monetarily because people are asking us quite literally to spend thousands of dollars on product that we can't get back. And yes, there is an equivalent for photography. Like, yes, all of our time is worth something. And yes, if you're willing to shoot film, like, yeah, there's a huge expense there in the film and the processing and the lab. So it's harder, like, as a florist to want to take on these shoots because it is so incredibly expensive. And people just think, well, you're just going to throw a few $100s at it. No, you're not. I mean, at least the shoots that I do, like, you're spending thousands of dollars, which is fine. But I also think that that's why there has been this kind of, I wouldn't say lack of them, but for a while they were very similar. A lot of the editorials coming in were just similar. And now it's kind of more akin to, well, this is for my brand. It's going to be more, gosh, what's the word? It's not going to, it'll fit into a niche, but also it will, gosh, what is the word that I'm looking for? All season,
Like less
basically.
consumption.
Intentional. Yeah, so it's very, very intentional, and which is great. So I think it's just kind of like a change into, at least for florists, for what they feel is appropriate for their portfolio. Like, we're not taking on, shoots every month. Like, it's just not feasible because the return on investment really isn't the same for us, at least floral wise. So yeah, that's probably why we see either people being very intentional with what they're doing, and spending the larger dollars with very specific other vendors in the group, I think. But yeah, editorials have changed dramatically. I mean, just look at, Martha Stewart is no longer in print. Like, that was a surprise for the industry, obviously. And then the whole shakeup with brides. There's just a lot of kind of what in the world is going on. So I feel like when we want to put our money out there and our marketing dollars, it's like, well, what do we do if we don't have the same options anymore? Like, are there going to be new options that come up? So, I think that's where you also see that push to Instagram and to TikTok of like beautiful shorts, or, something that I really am a proponent of is doing social media marketing. So if you have social media for your brides and grooms, to get it for yourself, because that is kind of like almost the new editorial. It's like the video editorial. It's just live in that regard. I've seen a change in that as well, but that's just me. So
yeah,
that's it.
No, I think those are all very accurate. So as we kind of look ahead to 2026 then, I would just kind of like to see what everybody's thoughts are on like what you think we're going to be leaning into, what are we going to see more of, what experiences do you think couples will prioritize? How do you think, like, how do you think people in the wedding industry will need to change and adapt in order to continue to be marketable? And like, what do we need to hold on to? What do we need to let go of? So we'll kind of go around and just talk about that, like some kind of what you think will define the next year, whether you think it'll be more of what we've seen this year, whether there'll be some new things that shift out, and how we will move forward. I know that's a really big question. Everyone can have their little condensed version of that.
I would say I think that vendors are really going to have to push what makes them stand out. I think that in the past, couples have booked based off of a very specific style, one particular thing they're looking for out of a vendor. And there also just seems to have in the past been a feeling that weddings are all the same. People expected pretty similar food, music, design choices, sort of just rolling through the motions a little bit. And now, because there's so many different unique experiences, like Jasmine said, the inspiration that couples are bringing in, everything is very individualized. And so we're seeing couples who are maybe based in California and they're having a wedding in Kansas City and flying in their photographer from Maine. So there's kind of no limits and no rules. So I think kind of marketing yourself to your couples about what experience a couple will get working with you versus a specific design that you specialize in or a specific type of editing style as a photographer. It's more about like the value in hiring you as a person and you as a brand, and less about, here's my standard packages, 8 hours or 10 hours of photography, pick what you want. It's more like, why me versus someone else who can also offer you 10 hours of photography,
Yeah, because there are a lot of great people that all look the same and all look very talented. Yeah, totally see that. Jasmine, what about you?
Yeah, piggybacking off of that point, especially at the end there, that there are more photographers than ever before right now. And so I think our new selling point is an emotional connection to our clients to show that we understand their vision. We understand what they're truly wanting what they're wanting their weddings to look like, and that we can deliver that and that they can trust us to deliver what they're looking for. And I think we're seeing a lot, like we've said, of individuality with weddings and weddings being unique, and we're breaking the rules essentially of how weddings used to be for the last however many decades it's been. But it's also, to me, it's exciting a little bit to get a chance to look at my, my work and how I conduct my business and how I talk to my clients and everything, and being like, okay, like, how can I change this so that it can fit better and that I can understand better like what these clients are looking for, but at the same time stay true to myself and what I want and my artistry and everything as a photographer. And so it's exciting to see this shift in the wedding industry where things are not necessarily looking like that cookie cutter wedding that we've all been used to. And I'm just excited to see what the future holds with this trajectory right now.
Kimberly, you have any?
I don't remember what the question was. I'm so sorry.
It was just kind of a look ahead into 2026. What design trends you think we'll see more of? What you think business owners will need to prioritize in the wedding industry? What experiences couples will prioritize? Like, what does 2026 look like for you?
Sometimes I want to say it's just a big question mark. Like, I'm very curious because I almost don't know. I feel like a lot of the stuff, I mean, honestly, like sometimes it just surprises me what kind of comes in. And so it's kind of hard to say. What I can definitely say is that I don't think the clientele is going to become any less aware of all of the things surrounding what a wedding is. It's the basic stuff is still the most important. So it's obviously a gathering of friends and family or very specific people that you call family or whatever you want to say. Like, it's going to continue in that trajectory. I think that weddings are going to continue to become smaller because the cost is it's through the roof. I understand that, San Diego is a very expensive market to begin with for wedding in general, but I think we're going to see a downward trend in guest count because it's just not feasible. And if a client wants more of a luxury aspect to it, whatever that might mean to them, it's going to tend to cost more across the board. So bringing the guest count down is your number one way to do that in order to give people the experiences that everyone is so focused on, which is great. It's basically you're making memories. It's just different. So I would say that is probably the most obvious. And I think the other thing too is that pricing for everything is not going to go down. It really once we, especially with like the tariffs on flowers, like farmers aren't going to change the cost that they are now charging. They're not going to, it's not going to change. So it's only going to continue to escalate. So it's, really being mindful of where you want to spend your money, even more so than what it was before. I would say that, yeah, that's what I would have to say. Hopefully that answered the question, Brent. I'm not sure if I answered the question.
Oh, there's always a question mark, yeah, for sure, because I feel like sometimes each year just ends up being wildly different than the year before. And I think that has been, like you touched on it some with just the overall expense for people too. And that's been a big factor in the last couple of years as well, is like people have tightened back a little bit and they are spending a little bit less. And so for anyone who's a vendor in the wedding industry, like our costs have remained the same or gone up. And so you're kind of always juggling that of like, how do we continue to pay our overhead of what we need as business owners while still accommodating what the budget of the current market is. And so I do think that the redefining of luxury will be something that's interesting, because I do think it is going to be based more on how people perceive you and how they perceive what you're going to do for them versus the actual product that they're getting. It's a chance to stand out and to show people how you can be different for them as a wedding vendor and how you can bring the experience that you have to the table. And so I think that that's an interesting thing. I think that one thing that gives me a little bit of, I won't say hope, because I don't think we're like in a place where anything is going like awfully downhill in the wedding industry, but just kind of a nice shift, I guess, is, and Jasmine, you will like to hear this too, as someone who shoots film and stuff, is I do feel like Gen Z is pushing back into the world of analog again. I feel like things that are tactile and that have meaning, it kind of goes with this thing of having experiential things, because it's like, do you want to sit down and like have a board game with your friends, or do you want to do something that's digital? Do you want to have like just digital pictures, or do you want to have an album? Do you want to have just, do you want film? Like there's a pushback to vinyl music. Like everything has gone backwards again. A lot of Gen Z, while they still have their smartphone in hand, are walking around with an early 2000s, late 1998 digital camera that they're taking pictures of, because it feels more raw and tangible and authentic to them. And so I think that is interesting, because I feel like that's going to also change and reshape things a little bit too. That combined with people not wanting to feel like they're the center of attention. They don't really like the hyper perfection of social media, and I think all those things are going to shift the way that people are planning their weddings and what kind of days they're having as well. I see a lot more of the guest books that are like the old phones that people speak into and leave a voice message for their couple. Just different little things like that are interesting to see, that feel like a pushback to 15 to 20 years ago of probably what these people were feeling when they were kids. Because I think that that's what you often gravitate towards when you get to this point in life. You're like, I want to do what makes me feel nostalgic. And so, the nostalgia of their childhood is kind of what's coming into the wedding industry now. But I like seeing that, because I'm a big fan, obviously, of the aesthetic of film and just the nature of a tactile environment, things that are very hands-on, things that feel real. And so I do think that we're going to see some shifts that way too. All right, we're going to wrap up here. If anybody has any closing statements or anything that is kind of your big takeaway from this, I really appreciate everybody jumping on and having this conversation. I feel like it's really needed in the industry, and appreciate y'all taking time to come in and give your perspective as vendors and insiders in the industry. But I'll give everybody a time to kind of make their closing statement, and be sure to mention where people can connect with you on socials or your website to interact with you also. So we can go ahead and start with Clara and Jasmine.
Yeah, this was great. I feel very excited. I think that the general consensus I'm seeing from vendors and even what I'm hearing today is people are feeling very invigorated going into 2026 and feeling ready to show up and kind of show what they can do with that personalized, individualized touch in the industry. So I'm excited to see more of that and see some very pretty and very unique weddings. I want more of that. I'm excited to see just kind of a return to the individualism. I think that that's needed in the industry. And I don't think that that's going to go away anytime soon. I think that's going to be kind of the norm moving forward. And I am all for it. And if you guys want to work with me or follow along with us, we're on Instagram at BeInspiredPR. And our website is beinspiredpr.com. And we're always excited about cool people in the industry all the time.
Yeah, thank you so much for the invitation to join this roundtable. It was really great to see from all these different points of views in the wedding industry, to see what's going on and how we're all getting through, taking it day by day, basically, and how we can hopefully support each other as well in 2026 moving forward. I am on Instagram at Jasmine Marie Photo, and my website is jasminemarie.me. And yeah, thanks again for having me here. I really appreciate it.
Kimberly, are you still with us? She might not be. All right. Well, Kimberly is a wedding planner and a floral designer. You can find her at Sisti Co, SISTI.co, and let me get her Instagram real quick. Sisti.co, same as her website, so you guys can find her there. So yeah. Well, cool. Well, this has been fun. I do look forward to seeing what 2026 holds for everybody, and it'll be fun to see what happens. I know it's a challenging time, but it's also kind of a time to, like, I think in those challenges you kind of have to take a step back as a business owner and find out what works, and like fine tune things and reevaluate the way you're doing things, and so it sort of gives you a chance to refresh your own thing. And I think that's the kind of fun part about it as well. And so I'm excited to see what comes about this year, and excited to see, like Clara said, lots more pretty stuff come through our desk here that we can continue to share for y'all too. So thanks so much for jumping on, and we'll talk soon.
There's a place called home, a place called home.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Nested. You can keep up on all things White Wren on our website at whitewren.com or follow us on social media at The White Wren. Tune in again next time and have a wonderful day.
Oh, I've walked for miles and I've traded my time for advice.